The first target was industrial Germany. Production of Hitler's high-tech war machine had to be slowed down. We had built some great long-range bombers, but they couldn't get the job done on their own.
It's so ruddy dark down there, I can't see a damn thing. Blasted clouds.
By day, our bombers were shot out of the sky. By night, they couldn't see what they were bombing.
In the early 40s, less than half of our bombs were falling in the right place. We had to get more accurate. So, once again, we turned to radar.
Radar technology was developing fast, and it was shrinking. This tiny device had 100 times the power of the first chain-home radar transmitters. It's called a cavity magnetron.
This is a very cleverly designed valve which produced radio waves with a much shorter wavelength than any device before. Now radar could detect much smaller objects with something considerably smaller than a chain-home radar station.
In fact, so small you could fit it into an aircraft, a development without which modern aviation and shipping would grind to a halt. By 1943, Lancaster bombers were fitted with onboard radar units called H2S. Inside, the operators saw an image of the ground ahead for up to 30 miles. Now, they could see in the dark.
So here we are in our aircraft, right in the middle of this top screen. Our target is the southern tip of this landmass here. You can just see it being lit up there. And this straight line here represents our direction of flight, which, as you can see, is right over the target. Now, by twisting these two dials under here, you can determine your altitude and your range, given by this circle here. And with all of this information, you can calculate exactly when to drop your bombs.
By late 1943, guided by this great British invention, Allied bombers were targeting the heart of Germany, Berlin.
In winter, Berlin was often hidden beneath cloud cover. No longer a problem for British and American bomber crews. Thanks to H2S radar, they had a precise picture of their targets on the ground, day and night, whatever the weather.
Bombs away! In the 1940s, while our bomber crews did their best to cripple German industry, back home our own factories were preparing for war on land. All sorts of civilian companies suddenly found themselves in the arms business. With some surprising successes, like British car builder Daimler, makers of this beautiful 1938 DB-17.
Daimler built luxury cars for the well-to-do and the upper classes, including the royal family.
With luxury features like the pre-selector gearbox, a predecessor of the modern automatic gearbox. Choose your gear, press pedal to metal, it changes gear for you.
Yes, so this is one of the smoothest pre-selector changes I've ever used. Really good. But as the 30s came to an end, the demand for luxury had somewhat fallen off.
In 1938, Daimler was the perhaps rather unlikely recipient of a government contract to build a totally new type of vehicle.
It had to be fast, it had to be stealthy, it had to be armoured, but it also had to have superb go-anywhere off-road capability. And it had to be built from scratch in just 1 year. Impossible? Ah. And this is it, the Daimler Scout car, affectionately known as the Dingo. Is there a problem? I think we can let this chap through, Pearson. Back up.
The Dingo has a reputation as one of the greatest reconnaissance vehicles ever built. It saw action from 1939 well into the 50s. Its modern descendants still patrol the world today. But its finest hour came in the aftermath of D-Day. Armoured vehicle expert John Pearson has joined me to explain more.
It wasn't intended to fight, it was intended to sneak up, look, get the information back so that the advancing army would know where the enemy were.
Old-style scouts on horseback were no longer able to keep up with a modern, mobile, mechanised enemy. But the Dingo could. With war approaching fast, Daimler had rushed their design from drawing board to working prototype in less than 12 months. And yet, the Dingo achieved an amazing 60 miles an hour, on and off-road, making light work of the odd bump and gleefully wading through rivers. This fantastic performance was partly achieved with a massive 55 horsepower engine adapted from one of Daimler's luxury cars. But it also came down to some very pragmatic design decisions.
As an armoured car, the Dingo has to trade protecting its crew against speed and agility. The weight is kept down to roughly 3 tons, there's no turret, no roof, and a tactical approach to armour.
Most of the armour is no more than 10mm thick steel plate, just about enough to protect against machine gun bullets.
Where we're most vulnerable to attack is here at the front, which has much thicker 30mm armour, which in theory is enough to stop a light anti-tank round. But I don't think I want to be sitting in here when they tried that out.
In June 1944, the Dingo faced its greatest test.